Bobby's Aaron from the 1950s on WIXY1260 and First Class. This is Ray Kim, live and direct from the Ghoulardifest here in Cleveland, Ohio. We have got another Cleveland icon, Hoolihan the Weatherman, a.k.a. Bob Wells, who, of course, was a big part of Channel 8's programming in the 60s and 70s, right?
Right up to 1979, yeah.
Well, you took over for Gilardi in December of 66?
You got it. Very good. You got a good memory there.
Yeah, well, we old folks do, you know that.
Well, I was just thinking that here you are with WIXY1260.
In 2013.
An institution.
Right,
and
right.
I should have been institutionalized years ago.
That's as old as I am, I can tell you. What year did you come to Channel 8 as Hoolihan the Weatherman?
The year before we took over on the Friday night movies in 1965, the fall of 65.
65, right. Well, Gilardi began in 63.
Right.
Right, yeah. And during his reign in Cleveland, you were the weatherman. Is that right?
Don't say rain. That's what it's doing outside right now.
That's what it usually does, right.
Wrong rain, of course. But
right.
I'm sorry, there was a question there someplace.
There was a question there. You were the weatherman during Goulardi's years at WJW, is that correct? Right, and then who replaced you when you went to do your show with Big Chuck?
Well, what happened was it was kind of a, well, I don't know how long you've got here, but
as long as you want.
It's a medium to long story.
Okay.
When there was a crazy mix-up that happened between Westinghouse and NBC.
I remember that. Yeah, right.
And they changed all the personalities, including Mike Douglas, if you might recall.
Right, I remember that too.
And all those folks, lock, stock, and barrel to Philadelphia. Philadelphia personalities, including Wally Canaan, the weatherman, came to Cleveland. And, of course, now Dick Goddard is in Philadelphia.
Right, I remember that too, right.
And he was, of course, tremendously popular here. So how do you translate that into a new market? Well, it didn't work out. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in this case, he was very unhappy, came back here, and I had heard that he was in the area looking for, coming back. Right. And my thought was, well, we went from a distant second to number one in the ratings, modestly, partially, because of the weather and the way I was doing it.
That's another story. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we had Wally Canaan,
the weatherman,
personal friend of the manager over at Channel 3, on NBC. Right. And you had Don Webster, also a very popular personality.
Right, sure.
But I think he was like third in the market. So my thought was, Dick will come back and replace the lowest rated person, and then they would get, number one, hopefully, on their side. That's why they would bring him in. Well, fate intervened, because I was over at Channel 3 down below in the basement where the recording studios are. No, they weren't keeping me hostage. I was working there as doing an announcing thing, commercial spot. And I finish up, I go in the elevator, and this guy comes on, who I did not know, but he recognized me. And he looks at me and says, "Oh my gosh, this is really wild." Says, "What?" And he says, "Well, I'm meeting two weathermen in the same day." And I says, "Well, of course, I'm one, so who's the other one?" "Well, Dick Goddard." "Yeah, I just met him. And he's coming over to your place, isn't he?" That's how I found out I was being replaced.
Wow, that's quite a story. You're right, that's quite a story.
It brings a thrill to my heart.
Thrill.
So anyway, bottom line, I got moved up to noontime and weekends. Right. And, of course, the Houlihan and Big Chuck show on Friday nights. So.
Now, I heard that when Gilardi went off in December of 66, Channel 8 held a contest to find the replacements? Is that how it went?
I can't call it a contest per se. It was a series of auditions.
Okay, auditions.
And a lot of people came in, in Gilardi costume.
Right.
Assuming, they just want to replace Gilardi with that same kind of character. Forget it. There's a one and only Gilardi.
Of course. Which we all know, right.
Yeah, I mean, he was truly an institution.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody who can garner 75% of the audience on a Friday night, you're not going to let go unless he
I met
wants
him
to
a number
go.
of times. I was actually in his studio watching him do a show from inside the studio.
Oh, yeah?
In 1964. I was his first studio audience.
Really?
Yes.
You were it? I mean, an audience of
Just
one?
Me.
What are you saying?
There was me and Gilardi and a cameraman and a floor director. That was it. And a dark studio except for that light on his face.
Yeah, right.
That was it, yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
I was in there.
Oh,
I was 17 years old.
Well, how do you wangle your way into that?
I asked him. I called him up and I asked him, I said, "Can I come down to the studio and watch you do your show from inside the studio?" He said, "Sure." He was very nice about it.
How about that?
And it just worked.
Imagine Ghoulardi being a nice person.
Really, yeah.
That was not always his personality.
So I've heard.
I mean, ask Dorothy Fuldheim, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, she loved him.
And the mayor of Parma, you know.
So I heard that story. So you came on board with Chuck in 1967?
No, the fall of '66.
Oh, it was fall of '66.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And you were, from what I heard, you were like the pro, and Chuck was like a little bit camera shy. He didn't want to really be in front of the camera.
Well, of course, he's gotten a fair amount of experience on Ernie's or the Ghoulardi show.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Because the batting coach.
And I hear he had to be cajoled to do that.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, right.
But he was, I mean, he doesn't feel confident on the air.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what you saw was a very competent pro, but I mean.
Really? I mean, I thought he came across fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He didn't feel that way inside.
Uh-huh.
But, it took maybe 6 months to a year with our show
Right.
before he really felt confident to be on
Right,
camera.
yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, now he's just.
Oh, yeah.
He'll do anything
now
anywhere.
Now he's retired.
Yeah.
You go.
But of course, they're on Saturday mornings for heaven's
So I've
sake.
heard, yeah, I'm never up that early, but I've heard
Oh,
they're playing
come on.
this.
It's
Yes.
11 o'clock. Give me a
I
break.
know. So in 1979, you moved to Florida.
Right,
Is
uh-huh.
that correct? And
That's
you
right.
were running a Christian station, I believe?
Well, yes, I became a Christian in the summer of 1976.
Okay.
And, very specific relationship with the Lord.
Right.
And so along came this fella who owned 5 Christian radio stations and contacted me and said, would you like to be general manager of my Christian radio
Hard
station?
to say no to that.
In Parma,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I had never, God knows, I was never a general manager of anything
Right.
or sold anything except
Uh-huh.
seeds when I was about 13. And I said, well, yes, I think that'd be great. So I did that for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And then a fella who had worked at Moody Radio here way back when was now at a Christian radio station in Auburndale, Florida,
Okay.
which is east of Tampa. And one of his engineers came up to Cleveland to visit his sister, and she said, hey, you'd never believe who became a Christian. I don't know what my reputation was, but what the heck?
Hoolihan the weatherman.
Yeah, no, I mean, come on. I was a nice guy, come on. So anyway, she says, now you got to go out to his radio station and apply for a job. And he says, sis, I'm working in Florida. I have a job. I'm not going to work in Parma, Ohio. Thank you very much. Yeah. Nothing wrong with Parma, but it's the weather.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, no
you
kidding.
know what I'm saying.
No kidding.
So anyway, but he came out anyway, and we had a nice chat. We had like maybe 8 people on staff. We didn't
Wow.
need any more people, so we had a nice chat, and we wished each other well, and he went, and then he goes back to Florida and tells this now to be general manager of the new Christian TV station that, hey, I just met Hoolihan, and
Right.
and he remembered me, being here in the area for that time, and I think he fell asleep one night and woke up with my name on his mind. And he turns the light on and scribbles, Hoolihan, on a pad of paper and goes back to sleep, And he wakes up in the next morning and it's like, what the heck is that scrawl, And then he remembers, oh, yes, Bob Wells, Hoolihan.
Right, yeah.
And so he got together with his people and they said, I know Barbara Wells is a good personality. She was on WJW radio, or as we called it at the time, Dobja de Jopja. So this is the Polish version.
Of course. Didn't sound Russian.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And so they were creating what they called kind of a hallmark sort of a program,
Okay.
to represent the station. And it was like 90 minutes a night, 8 o'clock at night, prime time, on Channel 22, brand new station.
Right.
And it was news, music, and interviews. And we came down, they flew us down, on their nickel,
Right.
which is always nice, Fly
Sure.
to Florida on their nickel. That's my motto. So, and by the way, the TV station which was about to go on the air was on a street, 142nd Avenue.
Okay.
Later, after I got there and made the decision to come on down, I looked it up on an old plat, as the names used to be
Right,
before the
right.
Wells Road.
No kidding.
Now that convinced me. I've got to go to Florida. So anyway, we sold. Had a garage sale. First thing that went was a snowblower. Went just like
Can't
that.
imagine why.
Yeah. And we headed on down, and it kind of fell through for reasons we won't bother going into now, but lasted about 3 months, and I was set adrift. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Of course, we already said goodbye here, so there's no sense coming back to Ohio. And it's better to be broke in Florida than in Cleveland in the wintertime.
I'll never dispute that. I lived in Las Vegas for 4 years.
Oh,
Didn't miss the winter any more than you do.
Oh,
Believe
I
me.
got you.
Yep.
It does get cold out there. I know.
Yeah, it goes down to about 40.
Yeah.
It snows in the mountains.
Well, I don't want to talk about or think about
Right.
Sunday night here.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Going down to freezing and maybe some
Right.
snow.
Right. I know.
Oh, gee, I missed that.
Yeah, sure you do.
Yeah, right.
Wow. So what are you doing these days in Florida?
Well, you might assume at the age of 80, I'm now an octogenarian.
Wow.
Wow. It was fun being a sextagenarian, but now I'm an octogenarian, and all that's in the past.
Right.
Anyway, so years ago, I got my own one-man financial shop doing financial services. And oddly enough, I'm looking at your recording here in the hall, and I've got a small version of what you've got here. And people send me commercials by email. I sit there in my underwear. Sorry about the image there. And turn them out and send them back and by email. And I got a check in a couple of weeks.
That's
so
nice. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Bless their hearts.
There you go.
But basically, and also there's a wonderful performing arts center there called the Ruth Eckerd Hall. It's like a 2,200 seat performing arts center, at which, by the way, next March, Tim Conway is going to appear.
No kidding.
There
The same
you got
Tim
it.
Conway that was here today.
Yep,
There
the
you
very
go.
same.
Very
He
good.
was there last March, and he's making a return appearance. So anyway, I usher there, which is I get absolutely nothing for it, and I'm absolutely worth it. So.
You haven't lost your sense of humor, Hooli. That's great.
Wait, hey, you can't lose the sense of humor.
You're
That's
right.
what keeps you alive.
Yeah, you got that right.
I do not feel 80. I don't feel a day over
You don't
79.
look it either.
You talked on my joke.
Sorry.
I don't feel a day over 79. Ba-dum-bum, Go on.
One last question. I know you've got a lot going on here today.
Yeah,
Where
get
did the
back to
name
the booth.
Hoolihan come from?
Oh, okay, very brief story. The production manager of the station went to Chicago a year before I even showed up, before they even thought of hiring me or me leaving the station, because I was working at a NBC affiliate in Kansas City and doing weekend weather there. And he knew that I was interested in getting something. So during the course of his interview for getting his job, they mentioned that they were thinking of replacing their weatherman. Now, if you might recall, back in those days, all the weather guys were kind of stiff, not bubbly.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, very good and professional, but not a whole lot of jokes there. Okay?
Right.
And so he goes to Chicago for a conference of production managers, and looking through TV Guide in his hotel room for lack of anything else to do, I guess. And that time, that was before all the stations were marginalized. You had so many to choose from. A TV Guide edition at that time used to list all the stations and all the personalities who appeared on the newscast.
That's right.
The news was by such and so, sports by such and so,
That's
the
right.
weather by such and so, including in Peoria, Illinois, down the road. I mean, God knows they wouldn't do that now. You got too many stations.
You're right.
The book is about 3 inches thick as it is. Anyway, so he's looking at this Peoria edition, and he looks at Bill Hoolihan Weatherman. And he's thinking, Hoolihan the Weatherman. That's a pretty catchy name. What if that's for real?
Right.
I'm sure it was. So bottom line, fade out, fade in. He comes back to Cleveland, forgets all about it. A year later, I show up and audition, got the job, and my friend calls me and says, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, what's the good news? Give me that first. Well, you got the job. Oh, wow, okay. What's the bad news? They want to call you Hoolihan. And I'm going, oh, come on. I want to see how high Bob Wells can go in the marketplace. Are they stuck on that? He says, oh, yeah, pretty serious about it. Well, there's a method in their madness, of course. If I had been, asked for at some other station, I could not have taken the name Hoolihan with me.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but when Gilardi went out on personal appearances like ball games and
Right,
other things, he always signed his name G-O-U-L-A-R-D.
No H.
Well, you would know that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if another station had wooed him away, he could have kept the G-O-U-L-A-R-D
I heard
name.
that too. Maybe
Yeah.
from you. Yeah, someone told me that. Yeah,
Yeah,
might be.
yeah, he was
Might
a smart
be.
cookie.
I know he was. All right, well, Mr. Bob Wells, thank you so much.
thank you.
For appearing on
Enjoyed it.
WIXY1260 today. We appreciate your time and all your anecdotes.
No, my
Wonderful.
pleasure.
And I still say you are one heck of an announcer.
No, bless
Always
your
say
heart.
that.
Absolutely.
Why,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, back to music on WIXY. Thank you, sir.